Hey, friends. This is Martine Williams, and I am obsessed with all things mompreneur life and helping you to remix your priorities, your habits, your mindsets, and yes, even your relationships so that you can build a successful business without losing yourself in the process. I'm also obsessed with the color turquoise and lyrics of the 80s and 90s, but that's beside the point. Girlfriend, you don't have to hustle 24/7, 365 and continue to sacrifice your health, your relationships, and your sanity to be a successful mompreneur. As a small town girl living in a lonely world to a six-figure mompreneur, I am here to teach you how. There is a better way, and this podcast is your one-stop shop for all of the how-tos, the encouragement, the life hacks, the success tips, and of course, a little side of tough love. This is the Mompreneur Life Remixed podcast. So let's do this. Welcome back, friends, to the Mompreneur Life Remixed podcast. It's Martine, your CEO, your Chief Encouragement Officer. Hope that you have been doing well. I took a couple of weeks off. We had our spring break. Hope you had an amazing spring break whenever you celebrated it. We just had ours. And we took our kids down to Disney and Universal. And we have not done that in a few years. And so now they're teenagers, and it's a completely different experience. If you are a mompreneur with littles and you're going to Disney, it's a completely different experience than it is going with teenagers. They don't have that like ooh and ah over all the characters, and just, the most magical place on earth is Disney. At least that's their slogan. And while there's still some magic there, it's a little bit different. But we equally enjoyed it because of all of the things we didn't have to wait in line for, characters and autographs and all the rides. Like, we were able to get in, ride the rides that they wanted to ride, and then go back to the hotel, enjoy the pool and everything. So it was a really great quality time trip for my family, much needed from all of us. And wasn't sure, kind of how it was going to go. I honestly thought that they would be like, peace out, we're going to go ride rides, and Shaw and I would just be walking around the park, just the two of us. But pleasantly surprised that they wanted to be with us and they wanted us to ride the rides with them. And I love roller coasters. I love thrilling roller coasters. I do not love the virtual roller coasters. Like, there was one in the Harry Potter that Lily ruined me for the rest of the day because it was virtual reality, and it just made me upset. My stomach so upset. So as long as it was high and went upside down and all of those things, I loved it. And so we had a great experience. We actually did some indoor skydiving. I think they call it skydiving. It was called iFly, was the company that we did it with. And it's so funny. We're sitting, and I promise I'm to get to the point of this episode, but we're sitting in, they make you kind of go through this little school where they kind of give you the hand signals. Because once you're inside the wind tunnel, like, you can't hear anything. And so they're giving you all the hand signals on straighten your leg, bend your legs, pull your arms in, everything. And there's other families that are in the room with us. And this literally, I thought we were going to be like in our own little private room. Like, it's out in the middle of the lobby. Like, everybody that comes in is watching you inside this, what do they call it? The flying zone, or I just said it, but now I forgot it. Anyway, so I'm sitting here thinking, oh my gosh, like, I love one-on-one coaching for me personally, because I like to have that one-on-one conversation, like get down to the nitty-gritty with just me and the coach. But I'm also very much a team player. But so the idea of walking in, everybody's gonna be watching me and watching me potentially like flip inside this flying container, or watch my face as the wind is making it look all funny and stuff. It was just really funny, all the thoughts that were going through my head. So apparently my face was telling the instructor that all these things are going through my head, because he was like, I'm going to need to give you the signal to relax. And he looked, because some of y'all need to relax. And he literally made eye contact with me. And I'm like, what? Like, I'm a pretty relaxed person, chilled out, like, and I'd have fun. But I guess my facial expressions were telling him otherwise. So I did not go first. There were these two little kids. I mean, I want to say they were 7 or 8. They went first, and they were like, it was so cool to watch him like hold them and maneuver them in the wind or whatever. And so then my oldest went and then I went. And I always like to follow my oldest, even when we're out shooting sporting clays, because I kind of watch what he does. And then I kind of follow suit with what he does. So anyway, I survived. We all survived. None of us lost control. It's a very safe. I mean, they pretty much have their hands on you the whole time. But my first time, so you had an option to go really high or just stay low. Well, I was like, I've never done this before. Of course, my boys are like, I want to go all the way to the top. So we paid extra for them to go for a high fly, they call it. So I'm in there and all of a sudden I feel and grab on to like both my arms and my legs. And here we go all the way up the fly zone and going around up top, almost like if you saw Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, when they get in that bubble machine, they're all the way at the top. That's what it was like, all the way to the top. And then he brings me back down. And I was not expecting that whatsoever. But when I got out of there and we were able to talk, I'm like, see, I can relax. I know how to have a good time. Like, I'm really not that intense. I'm intently listening because I'm a rule follower and I like to follow instructions. So anyway, we had a great time. That was kind of a surprise excursion we did for the boys. And so I was really focusing on family time and did not have an episode that came out for you last week. But something that came up over our vacation and over the last couple of days was it just reminded me of, I'm sure you have seen, there's still like a bazillion on TV, like especially if you're up late at night and all those infomercials are on and all the new exercise equipment or the new diet or I feel like every week they're coming out with a new nutrition plan or the latest and greatest exercise equipment that's going to give you results overnight, right? Which we all know that's not reality. And my background is in exercise science. So I worked in cardiac rehab for 7 years prior to becoming an entrepreneur. And so I'm a big advocate for exercise. It's super important for lots of different reasons. And I'm pretty sure you've heard me talk about this on previous podcasts. But here's the message. Every time I see a commercial for the latest and greatest fitness equipment or latest and greatest gadgets or whatever, like 95% of them will work if you work it. And I don't remember where this came up on vacation, but it works if you work it. Actually, I know where it came from. I was actually having a conversation with a mentor and we were talking about marriage. And, I'm like, it works if you work it 95% of the time, right? It takes intentionality. It takes you putting in your own reps to uphold that relationship and to make that relationship thrive. But that really is a message that we could take home today for really anything, but specifically to the exercise equipment, right? We buy the new shiny thing. Like I got a Peloton because, I injured my knee back in January, or not this past January before. And so I was really leery of doing plyometrics and going to the gym and doing my circuit training that I was doing before, which had some high intense workouts. And, even in the back of my mind, I had this thought of, I'm going to buy this piece of equipment. I don't like working out at home. I prefer being in a group atmosphere, working with people and the music and all of that. And so is this just going to become a clothes rack? Right. And I remember as an exercise physiologist having this conversation with my patients when they would come in and they were ready to move on their own and do their exercise at home. We had this conversation about, are you someone who likes to do it at home, or would you rather be around other people for motivation, accountability, whatnot? And so when I purchased this Peloton, it was an investment, even though I bought it used from a neighbor. I mean, barely used. I kept thinking, like, is this really going to work? And we have those questions, right? We ask ourselves those questions all the time when we invest in something. If we invest in a coach, we invest in therapy, we invest in an piece of exercise equipment, or we invest in a mentorship or a nutrition plan. Like, is this really going to work? Is this really going to work for me? Is a lot of times what I ask. Is this really going to work for me? Or is that just for that person? Like that person who really loves riding a bike? Because I honestly did not love riding a bike. And side note, the Peloton is way more than a bike. I could be their biggest fan these days. It really has been an amazing experience. So if you're struggling with exercise equipment, what to get, I would say it is an investment for sure, but you probably could find one to use like I did. And it really is so much more than just riding a bike. But that's the question to ask. And I always remind myself, it works if you work it. That bike is going to work if I put the reps in. I'm going to get good results if I'm putting the work in, right? So whatever you're thinking about today, what's coming up for you right now, as I'm saying, it works if you work it. Maybe it's your marriage, and maybe you're in a rough patch in your marriage. Maybe it's your business. Maybe you're wanting to start a business. You're like, is it going to work? It works if you work it. Parenting, hardest job on the planet. I think if you're a mompreneur listening to this, or you're a dad listening to this, you would agree it's one of the hardest professions that we have, right? It's a gift that the Lord has given us, and it's a huge sense of responsibility to raise another human. But it works if you work it. Your health goals, your fitness goals, if you work it, if you put in the reps and the time, it can work. It's not always the new thing. It's not always, that's always the right thing, right? Or the answer. And we are such a society of instant gratification, instant results, that we don't even give things the time to work. We don't invest the time and the effort and put our own reps in consistently to get the results we want. So consistent effort is going to equal consistent results. And so it may not be like the newest, greatest version of the Peloton. The old Peloton will work. The old stationary bikes that don't have the built-in workouts, they will work if you work it. If you schedule the time in, if you actually engage in the effort that it's going to take, it will give you the results. So you probably have heard this quote before, but I'm going to say it again. It may sting a little bit, but we have to stop complaining about the results that we didn't get with the work that we didn't do, right? Like either expecting someone else, maybe it's a relationship and we're expecting a different result in this relationship, but we're not putting in the work, right? Not just to invest in that other person, but to invest in us, to personally develop ourselves, to take care of ourselves so that we can show up in that relationship in a different way. A business, if we're only working our business one day a week, we can't expect to have the growth, can't expect to have the results. If you're trying to learn social media and marketing and all of those things, and we're not putting in the reps to learn. And sometimes that does take the investment of a coach, that takes the investment of a program to teach you how to do these things. If we don't work it, it's not going to work. So we have to put in our reps. Believe me, I wish someone could put in the reps for me on the Peloton, especially coming off the spring break now we did do a lot of walking. If you're following me on Instagram, you saw we averaged about 20,000 steps a day at the parks. So I was definitely putting my reps in, but coming back, it's just the Peloton workouts are different. The lifting that I do with my trainer is different, and taking a week off it's hard to come back to that. And I wish somebody could have put the reps in for me today, but I had to do that, right? It's going to work if I work it. The other thing, and this is what I have found on my journey as an entrepreneur, as a mompreneur, even again, as a parent, as a wife, is it's not necessarily the lack of ideas that we have. It's not the knowledge. You've heard me say this before. It's the action. It's putting the action behind the ideas that we hear or see, or that your coach, gives you to implement. You hear the idea, you get excited about the idea, but then you don't put the work behind the idea. And so there's no results. And then we just say, well, it just didn't work for me. Is that really a true statement? It didn't work for me? Or is it a statement of I didn't give it enough time, or I didn't put the effort in? And this literally takes you looking in the mirror at yourself, because we can blame the fitness companies and say, oh, that was just another scam gadget, fitness equipment. And there are 5% of them that are, right? If it's just take a pill and you don't have to eat right or work out, I'm not backing that at all. But for the most part, if we're putting in the time, putting in the effort, it works if you work it. The grass isn't greener on the other side, friends. It's greener where you water it. And I know you've heard that before, but it was a great reminder to me as I think about this next season and slowly trying to get my brain back kind of into that mode. It's whatever I'm trying to grow, whatever I'm trying to cultivate, there's my word for the year. it's greener where I water it, where I spend the time, where I put the reps in, where I'm engaging myself and my time in it. So we have to stop looking for the latest and greatest ideas, right? That didn't work, so let me try this. That didn't work, so let me try. And then you're just on this hamster wheel of ideas. Didn't work. And then, at least I find for women, the women that I coach, we take it personal. We come back to us and say, well, it didn't work for me because I don't have her personality. That business didn't work for me because I don't have her personality. Or that didn't work for my child because I'm not that kind of mom. It's not that we need the latest and greatest ideas. It's that we need to put the time into where you are right now. Where does God have you right now? What is he putting in front of you right now that you need to put some water on, that you need to fertilize, that you need to cultivate, because it's right in front of you. And it is an opportunity. But an opportunity is only as good as the time that we're willing to invest into it, right? We start chasing all the shiny objects that are not even getting you closer to where you want to go, but they give you this false sense of productivity or this false sense of engagement in your parenting or in your marriage. But it's not really in alignment with your priorities, number one. We talk about that all the time on this podcast, or in alignment with the goals that you have set for the life and the business and the parenting and the marriage that you're trying to build. So what's in front of you right now? What if you took that same time and effort that we spend chasing the shiny objects, looking for the latest and greatest or the new ideas and all of that, and just took that same time and effort and put it into what's in front of you right now? What resources do you have right now in front of you that you could dig in and really utilize? Because it also gets super expensive when you're constantly changing your lane and you're changing your resources and you're changing what you're investing in, and you're not giving those things enough time to work. You can spend some serious investment of your cash and your resources with the latest and greatest things, if they're not in alignment with who you are, what God's called you to do, and then putting the time into it to give it time to work. So when you think about marriage, so are you working it? And I, pun intended, intimacy. Are you working it? Date nights, taking care of yourself. This is for man or woman listening. Taking care of yourself so you can show up confidently in that relationship. If you have no energy because you're not taking care of yourself, you're not getting enough sleep, you can't show up confidently in that relationship. And you definitely can't show up confidently in the bedroom and be intimate with your partner when you're not feeling confident in yourself. So it's a domino effect. Now, I talk about self-care a lot on this podcast as well. So for both man and woman, this is self-care. Lack of self-care runs across both genders. So how are you working it in your marriage? What reps do you need to put in to help make that marriage work? Because it works if you work it. You praying with one another and for one another. Maybe therapy is needed. Maybe you need some counseling. Maybe you need a marriage coach. Maybe you didn't invest into a program or a book or something. Like, it works if you work it. So what area of your marriage do you need to put some more reps in and give it some time to work? Because again, I find outside of like looking for the new ideas, we don't give the current idea enough time to work. I'm going to talk about that in just a few minutes. But so parenting, what does it look like to work it in parenting so that the parenting works? Quality time, giving your kids quality time, making eye contact with them. What are some non-negotiables with your children that, when it comes to disciplining is hard. It's really hard, but it's needed. It's needed. Giving them special times with you, whether it be, a mother-son or mother-daughter dinner or lunch, or what are those things that are important to your kids? Are you asking them those questions? Those are the reps that you're putting into that relationship. And that was one of the most freeing moments as a mom. I was just having this conversation again with my mentor while we were on vacation. And I said to him, I asked my boys what was important to them. Was it important to them that I cooked home cooked meals every single night and had it on the table by 6 p.m.? Or was it just important they had food to eat? Because what was modeled for me was my mom, who worked 9 to 5 every single day and still had dinner on the table at 6 p.m. And I mean like full course pork chops and rice and gravy and green beans and dessert and sweet tea and like all the things. And she enjoyed cooking, but that was important to my dad. And that was important to her for us to have that family time. I don't enjoy cooking. Yet that was the expectation I was putting on myself until I put in the reps and had the conversation with my kids to find out what was really important to them. And what I found was I was feeling guilty about a lot of things that didn't even matter to them. Did not even matter to them. So that is how parenting is working better for me now, because I put in the reps and had that conversation with them. I was curious about what they liked, and I'm curious about what their love language is. And so I know how to speak their love language. Work, depending on, as an entrepreneur or 9 to 5, just depends on, what your industry is, but you have to show up consistently in your business for it to work, right? I used to tell, when I was in the direct selling industry, I used to tell, and really this would go for anybody, if your mouth is closed, so is your business. You have to be letting people know what you do, what services you offer, so that they can say yes to you serving them. Fitness, one day a week at the gym, it's not going to give you the results that you want. So it's the right thing to do, but you have to do enough of the right things, enough times to get the right results that you want. And then your faith. I think about this season that I've been in and working out my own faith through leading a 15-year career on a high note and walking away from that into the land of the unknown and really working my faith out. And how have I been working my faith out, you may ask? I've been in the Word. I've been praying. I've been listening to worship. I've been seeking counsel from my mentors and my spiritual circle of influence who I can trust to tell me what I need to hear, not just what I want to hear. So how are you working out your own faith as well, so that your faith works, so that it shows up in those moments when you're in a crisis situation, right? It's the practice, all the practice and the reps you put in is what determines what happens on game day when you think about sports. So it's not just showing up. Like, we have a game today. Our kids have a baseball game today. They've been on spring break for a week. They haven't had a practice. They haven't hit a baseball bat. They haven't thrown a baseball. So it's going to be really interesting to see how they show up at the game tonight. So people want immediate results. I'm that way. I can tend to be that way. And I have to constantly remind myself it works if you work it, right? And consistent results. Consistent work could give you consistent results. So I want to encourage you that it takes time. It takes time to grow a business. It takes time to grow a marriage, especially if you're in a hard spot. It takes time. It didn't take, overnight for your marriage to get in the situation that's in right now. It's not going to be fixed overnight. Same thing with your business. Maybe you have another relationship that's kind of struggling. Give it time to work. Give the idea time to work before you give up on it. And remember that slow progress is still progress. So how are you tracking your progress? If it's with a relationship with your kids, are you tracking your quality time with them? Are you having conversations with them? Are you tracking, how did that work? Did your approach that time give you a better result, or was it a hot mess? You can keep a little notebook that's just yours for tracking some of these things. And, if we don't know the results that we're getting, then we don't know how to make the adjustments that we need. But I just want you to know this is not about perfection, that slow progress is still progress. So it works if you work it. And the common denominator is two things. Number one is you, right? Only you can put in those reps. And then it does take work. Marriage takes work. Building a business, keeping a business, sustaining your business, growing your business takes work. Parenting, I don't think anybody would disagree with me on that. Takes work. Anything worth having takes work, takes time and energy for you to invest in. So I hope that you'll be encouraged today to slow down, stop looking at the shining objects and getting distracted. But what's right in front of you right now that if you just put in a little bit more time, a little bit more effort into, it will make it work. Not everything does. This is a 95%, right? Not every fitness gadget works. Not every business is the right business for you. But I find 9 times out of 10, we're not giving it enough time and effort and patience for it to work. So grass is greener where you water it. What do you need to cultivate today? Spend a little bit more time cultivating, spend a little bit more time and energy focusing on removing the distractions and getting in alignment with where you want to go and spending the time and effort and putting the reps in so that it works. Well, I'm believing in you always. I'd love to hear what you think of this episode. Come find me on Instagram at Martine31Williams. And until then, or in between now and then, I will be seeing you, or you'll be hearing me on the next episode. Well, that's a wrap, friends, for this week's episode of the Mompreneur Life Remixed podcast. Thank you so much for listening and for following the show. It means so much to me. And listen, friend, sharing is caring. So if you loved this episode and thought of some fellow mompreneurs who could benefit, send them the link. Share this episode or take a screenshot and head on over to Instagram and share and tag me at Martine31Williams. We are connected on Instagram, right? It's where you will get all the fun behind the scenes of my life and business as a mompreneur. Until next time, know that I am believing in you always.